'Tis the season to be jolly, the Christmas festivities of 2025. It's a troubled world out there, but Brits have a stiff upper lip reputation, and as far as I am personally concerned, the Christmas season, and indeed the promotion of Father Christmas, was always an important part of year's end, with 3 young boys as my protégé. It was also the most cash-costly time of family year. I adored my times making Christmas specials, especially Father Christmas films. Here I was fortunate enough to have my family paid for as well, to travel to Lapland, where it was so cold I had to keep camera batteries down my trousers to preserve power. It's a lovely nostalgic programme for any time of the year really, and will stand the test of time, preserving a special Yuletide story for most people of the world. And indeed, this BBC picture of me as a full-on Santa remains one of my favourite. My father angered my mother by putting his slippers up the sooty chimney and walking across the living room floor from fireplace to my presents to add authenticity to the moment. I took greater risks with my own offspring, jamming in contact lenses at 6 in the morning and prodding them awake while in full Santa costume, giving them special presents in the darkness. Got away with it for years. May you have the best of holidays, whether you say Happy Christmas or Happy Holidays. There's no doubt that by the time December the 1st dawns, year in, year out, Christmas is well and truly on the way. Shops are full of everything festive that you could possibly imagine, and Christmas trees start to sprout up everywhere, weighed down with festoons of lights, tinsel and baubles. Children all over the world begin to count the days to Christmas Eve in the hope that Santa Claus will bring them their heart's desires. And by the time the greatest night of the year actually arrives, the excitement levels are at a veritable fever pitch. Now, although a complete stranger creeping into your house at the dead of night any other time of the year might cause burglar alarms rather than sleigh bells to ring, somehow this jolly old chap dressed in red, complete with white beard and bowl full of jelly fat tummy, is fine with us. But how did this wonderful Christmas tradition ever start in the first place? And why is Santa Claus one of the most recognisable Christmas characters wherever in the world you travel? Customs may vary depending on where you live, but the principle is always the same. Behave yourself all year round, And on Christmas Eve, the saintly old red-cloaked gent will deliver generous quantities of gifts to your bedside, or Christmas tree if you prefer, ready for when you wake on Christmas morning. Simple and straightforward as this might all sound, despite there being just the slightest hint of bribery in the whole proceedings, our modern-day Santa Claus is about as complicated as he could possibly be. And so our story of Santa Claus begins, with a programme that'll take you on a journey of discovery, quite literally, all around the globe. Take a close look at this traditional nativity scene, and you may think that you can see where the idea of gift-giving at Christmas time actually came from. Wise men laden with gold, frankincense and myrrh, and even humble shepherds giving lambs to the Christ child are synonymous with this very special time of the year. But in many countries, the exchange of presents in the depths of winter dated back to far more ancient times. Storing up food for the cold months of the year was, in point of fact, a matter of life and death. With no knowledge of natural history, when the leaves fell and the trees became bare and the land unfruitful, folk believed that the spirits who cared for the earth had deserted them, and they needed to entice the spirits to come back again. Lots of our present-day seasonal traditions have developed from these early times. Christmas trees were far from being an indoor phenomenon back then, as people would adorn bare branches with tinsel-like decorations in the hope that the spirits would quickly return, bringing the trees back to life, resulting in plentiful food supplies. Naturally, each spring, when green leaves sprouted once more, people congratulated themselves on their successful tree-dressing efforts, and the practice continued even when they knew the real reasons for nature's bounty. Today, of course, we have tree decorating down to a very fine art, giving a wonderful central focus for our Christmas celebrations. Bringing greenery like evergreen branches, trees, holly and mistletoe into the house was thought to invite good fortune at this otherwise bleak time of the year, as it would give the tree spirit somewhere to shelter. Holly was a symbol for good health and happiness, especially when it was given as a gift. In Roman times, a wreath of holly was a very popular present, and again it's a tradition that continues to this very day. Most families will buy a wreath to decorate their front door, but just remember that to get the full benefit of this ancient custom, it should really have been given to you by friend or relation who wants to wish you well. But the best of the very first Christmas gifts were definitely of the edible variety. Food was a valuable commodity, and gatherings where folk could exchange what precious supplies they had and share in a glorious midwinter feast made for a treat indeed, that was anticipated with great excitement. Of all our Christmas food, the flaming pudding is about the oldest and most traditional, having developed from an ancient Celtic porridge loaded with meat and fruit. It might not seem very appetizing to us, but those Celts loved it. but at least our Christmas pudding today only contains fruit. And if you do find a suspicious ingredient, it's more than likely to be a shiny, lucky silver coin to bring you good fortune for the year ahead. All of this early gift-giving involved the exchange of presents, and although a character called Old Father Christmas soon became a part of British seasonal customs, he certainly was far more concerned with receiving than he was with giving. It was the Vikings who had first dressed someone up to represent winter with a warm cloak and a crown of winter evergreens, and people believed that by making him as welcome as possible, the spring would quickly come. Old Father Christmas would visit every household and eat, drink and make merry with the occupants. It's hardly surprising that he was a jolly fellow, and providing gifts for all the children was the last thing on this early Father Christmas's mind. So what has this Old Father Christmas got to do with Santa Claus? Are they one and the same person? After all, this tends to be our modern understanding of the red-coated, white-bearded, round-bellied chap whose visit we await so eagerly on Christmas Eve. The answer is quite simply no, because while Father Christmas was eating and drinking his neighbours out of house and home, Santa Claus was already developing as a far more generous and selfless soul. Santa Claus was a real person, and he was a very special man. Sometimes at Christmas time, our generous Christmas Eve gift bringer is also called Saint Nicholas, and he came from a country called Turkey a very long time ago. Saint Nicholas was born in 280 AD in a little town called Patara, not too far away from Myra, where St. Nicholas was a very important bishop. Now, many of our modern Christmas traditions have evolved because of the good deeds that St. Nicholas performed. As a young man, his parents died, which made him very sad, but it also made him extremely rich, because they left him all their money. They'd taught Nicholas to be good and kind, and to take care of others less fortunate than himself, and as a tribute to their memory, he decided to help the poor with his great riches. Perhaps the most famous story about St. Nicholas tells of the troubles of a poor man with 3 daughters who faced destitution. It sounds crazy today, but back in St. Nicholas's time, if a girl's father had no money to pay for a dowry, then she'd never be able to get married. A dowry was a sum of money paid to the husband for the care and upkeep of his wife. Without this money, the girls in this story would undoubtedly have been left to become beggars on the streets, and the sad father was completely helpless to save his daughters from such a terrible fate. When Nicholas heard of the family's plight, he wanted to help them, but he felt that it was important to keep his kindness a secret. So, in the middle of a dark night, he took a bag of gold and coins and went to the house of the old man. The family was so poor that the windows were all broken but left unrepaired, which meant that Nicholas could throw the money in without disturbing anyone or being seen. The next morning, the father was delighted to find enough money to save his eldest daughter from ruin, but he had no idea who the generous benefactor was. Although Nicholas was pleased to have achieved this much, he knew there was work still to be done, and a few nights later he went along with a second bag of coins, which he dispatched in exactly the same way. Again, the family were astounded by their good fortune, as the second daughter was now able to marry, so they were also immensely grateful to the kind soul who was helping them. This was all well and good, but Nicholas still had the third daughter to rescue. On a moonless night, he slipped back to the house and prepared to throw the gold coins in through the window, just as he had on the previous two occasions. But with the improvement in the old man's and the two elder daughters' circumstances, the old man had put glass back in the windows and mended the shutters, so Nicholas could not stealthily leave his gift without drawing attention to himself. And here's where two of our best loved Christmas Eve traditions of today originated. Nicholas saw that the only way into the house was via the chimney, so he threw his coins into the air and down the chimney they fell towards the fireplace. Now the girls had been washing their stockings that evening and had hung them by the fire to dry overnight. Can you imagine the youngest daughter's surprise when she discovered a bag of gold coins in her freshly laundered stocking? Needless to say, she was absolutely thrilled. And to this day we still hang out stockings on Christmas Eve in the hope of receiving seasonal gifts, not to mention sacks of gold coins, but of course these days they do tend to be of the chocolate variety. We have Saint Nicholas to thank for this lovely tradition, and the idea of Christmas presents being delivered to our house by means of the chimney. As Nicholas grew older, he was made a bishop and continued to help others in many different ways. It's said that he saved 3 young boys from a murderous innkeeper who intended to make them into meat pies. And another tale tells of sailors being saved from a night storm at sea by the good Bishop Nicholas. And this is why, when you see pictures depicting the saint, you'll often see the image of a ship included. When Nicholas died in 345 AD at Myra in Turkey, where he'd been loved by everyone who'd known him, he was made a saint. Some years later, his body was actually taken to a special tomb at Bari in Italy, where today you can actually go and see his grave for yourself. At the time his body was removed, the people of his homeland were fighting a terrible war, and it was feared that St. Nicholas's saintly remains might be lost forever. But Italy is not the only country to claim to be the final resting place of St. Nicholas, as you're about to discover. Head for the southeast of Ireland, and you'll find Jerpoint Abbey marked significantly on every map. And although its 12th century origins and careful preservation make it worthy of a visit, our search for St. Nicholas actually brings us to a halt just short of the great abbey's ruins. This lovely green rolling pasture land is typical of Ireland's rural splendour. But as the sheep nonchalantly graze, closer inspection will reveal a hidden secret. The undulating peaks and troughs show exactly where a flourishing Norman settlement once stood, complete with miller, brewer, and its very own church. All that remains above ground today is this stunning ruined chapel that was dedicated to none other than St. Nicholas himself back in about 1170. This alone is nothing particularly unusual, as he was indeed a very popular saint. In England alone, there are at least 400 churches of St. Nicholas, and some of them are extremely well known. But it's not the church building that has led people to claim that the great saint is at rest here. It's actually this remarkable medieval tomb slab lying close by, aged and weather-beaten through the centuries, that's been the cause of so much speculation. Undoubtedly, this is the grave of a very important person, and the effigy's priestly clothing gave rise to the suggestion that it might be St. Nicholas. As we've already heard, his saintly body was removed from its original burial site in Turkey and taken for safekeeping to Italy. Could it be that a secret location in Ireland was actually the preferred choice? We are of course talking about the time of the Crusades, when religious relics, including the bones of revered saints, were highly prized and carefully protected, as well as being transported all across the civilized world. Consequently, it's definitely possible that St. Nicholas lies beneath this ancient slab, even if it's far more likely to be the grave of some religious dignitary connected to the neighbouring Jerpoint Abbey. Whatever future excavations and investigations may bring to light about the sleeper under this fine Irish soil, the story is as fascinating as it is mysterious, and the debate will certainly continue, for as long as the tale of St. Nicholas being buried in an Irish field is told. Having heard so much about St. Nicholas, the question that now springs to mind is how on earth did this saintly bishop of Eastern origin become transformed into our modern-day Santa Claus? Starting with the name, we need to travel to Holland, where St. Nicholas Day is still celebrated on the 6th of December. Dressed in red and gold bishop's robes and crowned with a mitre, St. Nicholas, or Sinterklaas as he's called in Dutch, arrives by boat with his companion Black Peter in Amsterdam late in November. The pair will then prepare for a journey throughout the land on the eve of St. Nicholas's Day. Sinterklaas rides a white horse, and children everywhere put out their shoes filled with carrots and hay for the saint's goodly steed. In the morning, providing that they've been good children all year, Sinterklaas will have filled their shoes with sweets and presents. But if he's heard that they've been bad, it's a very different story. Black Peter will leave nothing but birch twigs in the shoes of the naughty children, to remind them to behave better in future. When many Dutch people emigrated to America in the 1600s, they took their story of Sinterklaas with them. New York was originally called New Amsterdam, and the first church that they built there was named after Saint Nicholas. The tradition of Sinterklaas was quickly adapted into the developing American culture, with just a few modifications. To streamline the midwinter Christmas celebrations, the visit of Sinterklaas was moved forward to Christmas Eve, and children started to write letters to the great man on St. Nicholas's Day to let him know what presents they'd like him to bring. Also, it was quite difficult to say Sinterklaas if you didn't happen to come from Holland, and it wasn't long before he became much better known as Santa Claus. As the years passed, Santa Claus underwent a number of transformations, most notably in shape. Gone was the slim, elegant, saintly cleric, and in his place a stouter, rounder, and altogether cuddlier character appeared. Also, the idea of rewarding good children and chastising the bad lost much of its influence, and Black Peter found himself out of a job. The more jovial new Santa Claus was a figure of fun for the festivities, and all threats of birch twigs were soon forgotten. While all this was happening across the Atlantic, the British were rather at a disadvantage with their very merry but decidedly non-gift-giving Father Christmas. But by the time Queen Victoria arrived in the history books, transforming the nature of Christmas celebrations completely, the exchange of ideas between the two nations was as free-flowing as Victorian advances in transportation. Steamships like Isambard Kingdom Brunel's majestic SS Great Britain made transatlantic travel not only possible, but also comfortably convenient, benefiting both trade and culture. The yo-ho-hoing American Santa Claus with his sack of presents started to merge, and it has to be said pretty seamlessly with good old Father Christmas. However, there'd been significant changes to Father Christmas since his Viking origins, but this was more to do with the festival of Twelfth Night than Christmas Eve, which we associate so closely with him today. Twelfth Night, the 6th of January, was officially the end of Christmas, and huge parties used to be held to celebrate. This snowy iced cake rightfully belongs to this now obsolete festival, but it was transferred to Christmas because people were so fond of it. A huge fruitcake would always be baked for Twelfth Night parties. It was then cut in half, and a tiny bean hidden in each portion. One side of the cake was cut up and distributed to the ladies, and the other was given to the menfolk. Whoever had the slice of cake with the bean was crowned king or queen for the night and were in charge of the merry proceedings. Known by such titles as the Lord of Misrule and the Master of the Revels, the king certainly had a wild reputation to live up to, and Twelfth Night parties were famous for being raucous, rumbustious events. It was Queen Victoria, singularly unamused at such outlandish behaviour by her subjects, who banned Twelfth Night from being celebrated in any shape or form. But the great fruitcake is not the only Twelfth Night tradition to have been moved to Christmas proper. Christmas crackers also contain an equally important Twelfth Night relic. Victorian confectioner Tom Smith travelled to Paris, where he encountered the French sweet known as a bonbon. Twisted in a wrap of brightly coloured paper, the continental confection inspired Mr. Smith to invent the Christmas cracker. His early offerings contained a sweet and a motto, which was a simple saying or prediction for the future. It certainly was a multicultural effort, as this idea had come from the Chinese fortune cookie. Although successful, Tom Smith was not entirely satisfied with his handiwork, and one winter's evening, as he sat warming himself by the fireside, a log cracked so loudly that he jumped with surprise. Inspired again by a chance observation, he decided that creating a loud bang as the cracker was pulled would add the missing element to this popular festival frippery. The final addition to the Christmas cracker was a paper hat cut in the shape of a crown, which was a direct replica of the Twelfth Night crown. To this day, you'll still find these paper hats inside your Christmas cracker, despite the fact that the sweets have been superseded by gifts in miniature and the mottos replaced by extremely corny jokes or, allegedly, fascinating facts. With such an amalgamation of traditions and stories, Father Christmas, Saint Nicholas and Santa Claus all really started to fall under the same heading during the Victorian era, when Christmas evolved into the wonderful festival that we know and love today. Here you can see a quite extraordinary selection of early Christmas cards depicting Santa Claus, and to be perfectly honest with you, some of them seem a little alarming. To wake up and find this strange-looking character by the side of your bed might be enough to give you nightmares for the rest of the year. It's also quite bizarre to see Father Christmas wearing coats of different colours. Blue, brown, green and even white Santa Clauses crop up bearing gifts, which certainly for younger children might be a bit confusing. However, surprising as it may sound, an advertising campaign of the 1930s standardised Santa Claus forevermore. When Coca-Cola launched their winter advertising campaign in 1931, featuring the gift-bringing old gentleman, they dressed him, quite understandably, in their own red and white signature colours. The heartwarming, friendly character that they created with such success struck a chord with families the whole world over, and from then onwards, Santa Claus always wore a red coat trimmed with white fur, and a matching hat complete with pom-pom. He's instantly recognisable and has remained unchanged now for so many years, it's extremely unlikely that Santa Claus will ever alter significantly again. Coca-Cola undoubtedly played a major part in changing the public's perception of Santa Claus. But a poem written by Clement Moore some years earlier in 1822 called A Visit from St. Nicholas, more often referred to as The Night Before Christmas, added yet another dimension to the great Santa Claus legend. You're looking at reindeer in their native Lapland, pulling sleighs and helping people to move around in the snowy conditions. Until Moore put pen to paper, Father Christmas always travelled from house to house on foot or on a white horse. But once this poem had been published, a sleigh pulled by a team of 8 reindeer became Santa's only acceptable mode of transportation. A learned professor of Greek literature, Moore christened his reindeer with extraordinary names. If you're ever asked to list Santa's reindeer, they were Dasher, Dancer, Prancer, Vixen, Comet, Cupid, Donder and Blitzen, the last 2 being German for thunder and lightning. There's no mention whatsoever of Rudolph. He comes from another story entirely, but he's also incredibly popular. Many children will go off to sleep on Christmas Eve dreaming of a reindeer with a shiny red nose carrying Santa Claus and a sleigh full of presents through the star-bright night sky. Whichever tale of reindeer is told in your house, one thing's for certain. When you get the chance to see the real thing, they truly are spectacular animals, and to watch them in their natural habitat is a rare treat indeed, and one to be treasured by anyone fortunate enough to experience it. So, we've now pretty much covered Santa Claus's history, but just like any other visitor to our house, we do make considerable efforts in preparing for his arrival, and it's fascinating to look at the way in which some of these much-loved customs have developed. The centrepiece of most people's seasonal decoratings is still the Christmas tree. And it does seem that this ubiquitous symbol of Yuletide festivities appears earlier and earlier each year. It used to be quite usual to wait until Christmas Eve to bring in the tree and decorate it in readiness for Santa Claus's imminent arrival. However, many of the traditions connected with decorating the Christmas tree have their own tales to tell, and although the overall aim is to create somewhere beautiful for Santa to leave the presents, this wasn't always the primary objective. First and foremost, when decorating a Christmas tree, the lights have to be put in place. Today there are all manner of twinkling fairy lights to choose from, and nothing could be easier than plugging in and switching on. Finding any dud bulbs and changing them can be a bit of a chore, but this is nothing compared to the lengths that the very first people to light up their Christmas trees had to go to. It's thought that trees were first decorated with candles in the 16th century, ironically instigated by a very serious religious man. After walking in a pine forest on a starlit night, reforming priest Martin Luther wanted to recreate the image for his congregation. By attaching candles to the branches of the trees, he was able to share his experience. But it was only after Queen Victoria's husband, Prince Albert, made his wife a gift of a decorated pine tree centuries later that the practice became really popular. Everybody wanted to copy the latest royal trend, but it was not without danger. Here you see a Christmas tree covered in candles in exactly the same way as it would have been in Victorian times. Very beautiful as it might appear, just look how the candles are dripping and at times even toppling. A tree by its very nature is a combustible thing, and covered in up to 100 candles, it could be a significant fire hazard. When the candles were lit, there always had to be someone on fire watch, a task that often fell to the youngest member of the family, who would sit by the tree with a bucket of water at the ready. Although our modern lights are much safer, and the colours and shapes are bright and imaginative, there's something undeniably magical about these flickering naked flames, even if it does take a considerable amount of puff to blow them all out. As well as the lighting, Christmas baubles have an interesting history, and no tree would be considered decorated without a generous application of these glittering balls. In old Bohemia, glass blowing was of the highest quality, and centuries ago, after a particularly hectic day, refreshed only by copious quantities of beer, a group of very merry craftsmen decided to have a competition to see who could blow the largest bubble. After the winner had been rewarded for his efforts, probably with even more beer, the glass bubbles were left in a corner of the workshop. They twinkled and sparkled as the light hit them, and one of the men's wives thought that they'd make lovely decorations and took them along to a local Christmas market. The baubles were a great success, and the men even started to make them especially for Christmas each year. To begin with, they were quite large, far too big to hang on a branch. But as the demand for Christmas trees increased, the glass blowers saw a wonderful opportunity. by making miniature versions of the glass bubbles which could be used to decorate the trees. The glassblowers of Bohemia had created a whole new trend. It had been said that the reflective qualities of the balls would ward off evil spirits by frightening them with their own reflections. And who knows, perhaps our modern-day versions, although rarely made of glass, can offer protection for all of the presents that Santa Claus might just leave under the tree. No Christmas tree could possibly be considered complete without something special on the top of it. For some folk, an angel will always have pride of place, and a star also has a certain religious significance. But when it comes to having your Christmas wishes granted, what could be better than a wand-waving good fairy? In truth, you can put whatever you like at the top of your tree. It probably won't make any difference to what gets left underneath. But evidently, this family isn't taking any chances, giving Santa Claus himself star billing. Having enticed Santa Claus to deposit presents under the tree, and of course to fill up any stockings, sacks or pillowcases hung at the foot of the beds, it would be extremely rude not to leave something special for Santa in return. Everyone knows that you have to leave mince pies out for Santa Claus on Christmas Eve. It's an age-old tradition. All that's ever left on the plate on Christmas morning is a few crumbs. And of course, if you've left out a glass of sherry for the old chap, that'll be empty too. Make sure you don't forget the reindeer. They get pretty peckish, and just like Sinterklaas's white horse in Holland, they're also rather partial to carrots. Some folks say a saucer of milk will send them happily on their way, and whatever the reality, these customary rituals are carried forward year in, year out. As children grow into adults, they in turn pass on the custom to their own youngsters, and pure nostalgia permeates the generations. Nobody knows for certain why the mince pie is always offered to Santa Claus, but a lot of superstitions have developed through the centuries concerning this special Christmas delicacy, and to this day you're supposed to make a wish when you take your first bite of the first mince pie of the season. Hopefully, though, this rule doesn't apply to Santa Claus, because if he has to eat so many mince pies on his Christmas Eve travels around the world, he certainly deserves to get more than one wish. And that just about concludes the preparations for Santa's Christmas Eve visit, but not everybody is content to sit and wait. Traditionally, going to see Santa Claus in the weeks leading up to Christmas is very popular indeed. Fractious children and flustered parents queue up in department stores to see the great man, and he does seem to pop up everywhere. Here, deep down in the depths of some ancient caves beneath the royal forest of Dean, Santa awaits his young visitors. A lot of effort usually goes into the creation of Santa's grotto, and this beautiful Christmas creation is about as spectacular as you'll find anywhere. Yet it's been suggested that such dignified Santa Clauses as the one you've seen here might be, shock horror, only helpers enlisted for the Christmas season to leave the real Santa to prepare for his arduous journey all around the globe on December the 24th. But don't let this deter you. A little logical thinking will set you on the right track. If Santa's sleigh is pulled by reindeer from Lapland, then it follows that this is where his home is most likely to be. And for anyone who wants to go and see him there, some very warm clothing will definitely be required. Close to the Arctic Circle, the crisp white snow is guaranteed. But with only 4 hours of sunlight each day, there's always a magical, glistening twilight atmosphere. Not everyone's lucky enough to experience a white winter wonderland at Christmas, but we've certainly got real snow to share with you, setting off on an exciting journey at high speed across the icy Lapland landscape. And who can say what else might prove to be authentic in this magical place, so closely associated with Santa Claus?
Christmas is, whatever age you happen to be, a wonderfully nostalgic time. And Santa Claus is definitely an important part of the magic. Throughout history, the spirit of Christmas has been able to bring peace on earth and goodwill to all men, in a way that nothing else possibly could. Families ripped apart by arguments have settled their differences around the Christmas table, and even soldiers fighting in terrible wars have called a ceasefire, if only for a matter of hours, to keep the sacred festival alive. In the true spirit of St. Nicholas, the poor are remembered, and even those with very little themselves try to give something to those less fortunate. The homeless are cared for, and even though it might be for just a few days of the year, the world is a better place for the sake of Christmas. Not many children are fortunate enough to be taken to Lapland to see Santa Claus, but every effort is made to give all children a happy Christmas, wherever they happen to be in the world, something that St. Nicholas would most definitely have approved of. Looking at this beautiful, peaceful winter scene, it's hard to think of the hustle and bustle of our modern-day Christmases. We came in search of Santa Claus and have discovered the true spirit of Christmas, probably the very best gift of them all.